Something locked itself over the American Southwest again, and Las Vegas forecasters are watching it with real concern. It is not just another hot week in the desert. It is a specific pattern in the jet stream that keeps repeating, and each time it shows up, it drags two very different dangers into the same forecast at the same time. To understand what is happening, you first need to picture the jet stream as a fast river of air flowing high above the country, generally moving from west to east. In a normal summer, that river keeps weather systems moving along, giving regions a break between hot stretches and cooler fronts. But sometimes, that river stops flowing smoothly. It bends into a shape, gets stuck, and stays there for days or even weeks. Meteorologists call this a blocking pattern, and one especially disruptive version of it is known as an omega block, named because the shape it traces across a weather map resembles the Greek letter omega. Earlier this year, an omega block locked itself over the country for an extended stretch, keeping the middle of the nation warm and dry, while stormy, flood-prone conditions lingered along the coasts for days at a time. Meteorologists described it as weather déjà vu, the same pattern repeating night after night with barely any movement. High pressure jammed the jet stream in place, displacing storm tracks to the north and south and creating a split personality across the country. Dry heat in one region, relentless rain in another, with almost nothing moving between them. Now, heading into the heart of summer, forecasters are watching a similar setup take shape again, this time centered more directly over the southwest. The jet stream is forecast to bulge northward over this region, creating high pressure that stretches through nearly the entire atmosphere above it. During the summer, meteorologists explain, this kind of setup tends to produce day after day of blistering heat and intense sunshine, with little to no rainfall breaking up the pattern. That combination is exactly what has been building over Las Vegas and the surrounding desert southwest. The numbers already reflect it. Las Vegas broke through the 110-degree mark this year, hitting 111 degrees on what became the hottest day of the year so far. Nearby desert communities like Furnace Creek and Death Valley saw highs ranging from 113 to 120 degrees during the same stretch. Clark County opened cooling stations across the valley in response, a clear signal from local officials about how seriously this heat was being taken. But here's the part that has forecasters genuinely concerned, and it is not simply the temperature itself. It is what happens when that blocked high-pressure heat gets paired with the monsoon moisture that typically arrives across the southwest at this time of year. Monsoon season brings a completely different kind of weather into the mix. Moisture flowing up from the south and the Gulf of California feeds daily chances of thunderstorms across Nevada, Arizona, and parts of California. On its own, that moisture can bring welcome, if brief, relief from the heat. But when it collides with a blocked, unstable atmosphere that has been building extreme heat for days, the result is not gentle rainfall. It becomes a setup for sudden, intense storms capable of producing flash flooding, dangerous lightning, and gusty winds, often with very little warning. The National Weather Service office covering Las Vegas has been tracking exactly this combination in recent weeks. Their forecasters describe the pattern as variable but persistent, with monsoon moisture remaining entrenched across the region day after day. Thunderstorms during this stretch have carried the potential for localized flash flooding alongside strong, gusty winds and dangerous lightning, spreading across Clark, Lincoln, Nye, and Mojave County in Arizona and parts of the eastern California desert. What makes this especially dangerous in a desert environment is something many people underestimate. Ground that has been baked hard by weeks of extreme, dry heat cannot absorb water quickly, even during a heavy downpour. Instead of soaking in, the water runs off the surface fast, funneling into washes, canyons, and low-lying roads within minutes. Henderson firefighters have specifically prepared for this exact risk. Heading into monsoon season, repeating a warning that has become almost a local mantra during these months: never underestimate moving water. It takes surprisingly little of it to sweep a vehicle off the road, and desert flash floods can arrive with almost no visible warning upstream. There is another layer to this pattern that forecasters have flagged as particularly unusual. Normally, desert heat comes with one small mercy: cooler nights that give bodies and buildings a chance to recover before the next scorching day begins. But with monsoon humidity layered on top of the heat this year, overnight lows in Las Vegas have been hovering in the high 80s to low 90s, unusually warm even by summertime desert standards. Meteorologists have pointed directly to the added cloud cover and elevated humidity from the monsoon as the reason behind that lack of overnight relief. For public health officials, that detail matters enormously, because reduced overnight cooling is one of the clearest risk factors for heat-related illness, building up over consecutive dangerous days. The heat and moisture combination has also produced another hazard that catches visitors off guard almost every year. Sudden shifts in wind ahead of approaching storms can kick up massive walls of blowing dust, known locally as hay boobs, that can reduce visibility to nearly zero within minutes. One such dust event swept through Henderson and the east side of Las Vegas recently, arriving suddenly, on the leading edge of an approaching storm system, catching drivers and pedestrians off guard even though storms had already been forecast for the area. Tropical activity in the eastern Pacific has occasionally added another wrinkle to this pattern as well. Weak tropical systems forming off the coast of Mexico can pump additional moisture northward into the southwest monsoon flow, sometimes boosting thunderstorm chances even further before those systems eventually curve away and weaken. Forecasters watch these systems closely, since even a weak, disorganized tropical depression passing several hundred miles offshore can meaningfully increase rainfall totals across southern Nevada within a single weekend. So why does this particular jet stream setup keep repeating instead of simply passing through like a normal summer heat wave? Scientists point to a mix of factors layered on top of each other. This year features a developing El Niño, which reshapes atmospheric patterns on a global scale and has been linked to unusually active subtropical jet stream behavior stretching from the Pacific into the western United States. That active jet stream interacts with extreme warm ocean water off the California coast, increasing the thermal contrast between the subtropics and the mid-latitudes in a way that can help reinforce blocking patterns exactly like the one now sitting over the southwest. There's also a longer-running trend that meteorologists increasingly connect to these stalled patterns. As the Arctic warms faster than the rest of the planet, the temperature difference between the poles and the equator shrinks. That difference is part of what drives the jet stream's normal west-to-east motion in the first place. When it weakens, the jet stream tends to wobble more and get stuck more easily, allowing high-pressure ridges to sit in place for extended stretches rather than moving through in the span of a few days. The longer a ridge like this holds its position, the more heat builds up underneath it, and the more energy becomes available for sudden severe weather once monsoon moisture finally breaks through. This is not the first time an extended blocking pattern has reshaped an entire season across the country. Earlier this year, a similarly stubborn ridge sat over the western United States for an unusually long stretch, forcing repeated rounds of late-season showers along the coast, while simultaneously setting up dry, gusty wind events that elevated fire weather concerns further north. That pattern eventually gave way to a significant heat wave once the ridge finally consolidated and shifted. Meteorologists studying these repeating setups increasingly describe them as part of a recognizable seasonal rhythm, one where the same type of blocking configuration tends to reappear in slightly different forms every few weeks throughout the summer, rather than occurring as a single isolated event. Forecasters emphasize that this is exactly why they are watching the pattern so closely right now, rather than treating it as routine. Summer weather. A stalled ridge over the southwest does not simply mean a hot week. It means an extended stretch where extreme dangerous heat and sudden flood-producing storms can both be sitting in the forecast for the same days, sometimes for the same afternoon. That combination requires a completely different kind of preparation than either hazard would on its own. There's a practical side effect of this pattern that tends to catch visitors especially off guard. Las Vegas draws millions of tourists during the summer months, many of them unfamiliar with how quickly desert weather can shift from clear skies to dangerous flooding. Outdoor attractions, hiking trails around Red Rock Canyon, and low-lying areas near washes throughout the valley can go from perfectly safe to genuinely hazardous within the span of an hour once a storm cell develops nearby. Local officials repeat their warnings every summer for exactly this reason, knowing that a significant share of the people most at risk during flash flooding are visitors who simply have no prior experience with how fast desert storms can turn dangerous. For anyone in the region, meteorologists recommend paying attention to a few specific signals. Watch for excessive heat warnings paired with flash flood watches issued on the same day, since that overlap is precisely the scenario forecasters are worried about. Avoid hiking or spending extended time outdoors during the hottest parts of the afternoon, when both heat stress and storm development tend to peak simultaneously. If skies darken suddenly or winds shift abruptly, treat it as a signal to seek shelter immediately, since dust walls and flash flooding can both develop within minutes once a storm cell matures. Water safety officials also stress a simple but often ignored rule during this pattern. Never attempt to drive or walk through flowing water on a road, wash, or trail, regardless of how shallow it appears. Desert flash floods can arrive from storms that occurred miles away, sending a sudden surge of water down a dry wash long before any rain falls overhead in your immediate location. This blocked pattern is expected to persist in some form through the coming days, with forecasters noting daily storm chances continuing across the region, even as the underlying heat remains near or above normal for this point in July. That persistence is exactly the concern. A single hot, stormy day is manageable. A stalled pattern that repeats the same dangerous combination day after day, without the usual breaks that come from a moving jet stream, is what pushes an ordinary desert summer into something meteorologists are watching far more closely than usual. Before you go, if you want to stay ahead of how this pattern develops across the Southwest, make sure you like this video and subscribe, because we will be tracking every shift in this jet stream setup as it continues to unfold. The jet stream will eventually unlock, the way it always does. The real question forecasters are asking is how many more rounds of extreme heat and flash flooding it produces over Las Vegas before that happens. Keep an eye on how local forecasts describe the coming days, not just the projected high temperature. When an excessive heat warning and a flash flood watch appear on the same forecast page, that overlap is the clearest signal available that this pattern is still fully in control. Until the jet stream finally shifts, meteorologists say the safest approach is to plan for both extremes at once, rather than assuming one risk has replaced the other.